So the Anbernic 351P has been around for a couple years now. And if you're at all familiar with companies like Anbernic that produce retro consoles like this, you know that they're constantly pumping out newer and newer models. So that being said, you might be wondering, why am I writing a review 2 years later on the RG351P when there's a lot newer models out there? Well, honestly, I recently bought one and I do think there's a lot of great things about it, and I still think it competes with the newer models. Now, if you're looking for gaming like PS1, an N64, GameCube, Wii, and some of those newer retro consoles, you might be disappointed as the processing power is not going to match what else is out there right now. But if you're looking for stuff like Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, NES, SNES, and even some PS1 and N64, I really think you should give this system a shot. So let's get into the review, but before I forget, please subscribe and please like so I can produce more retro gaming content like this. And anyway, here to the review. So before we get into showing off the device, I want to give a little backstory as to why I was looking to get the 351P in the first place. I've been looking to play my older consoles like Game Boy Advance, and NES, and unfortunately I had lost most of those as a kid, and even the ones that I did have now, it just didn't look very nice on some of my older consoles, especially when we're kind of used to like stuff like IPS displays nowadays, which just looks so much better. Now, I guess I could play on my computer, but I don't know about you, I just feels much nicer to play a game, especially that's meant for a handheld like a Game Boy or Game Boy Advance, in your hands, portably. So I found the Anbernic RG351P, and it was affordable at the time, so I decided, hey, I'll give this a shot, and we'll see how it's like. Alright, so I'm going to give you a little bit of an unboxing of the RG351P. As you can see, I already have it out of the box. This is because I received it a while ago, and I've, at this point, put probably more than 100 hours into playtime. But I did hold on to the box, and here is what is included besides the console itself. You have a user manual. This is the padding to keep the system safe. It also came with a Wi-Fi dongle so that we could play Wi-Fi. And as I mentioned earlier, that's very important for if you're wanting to do something like retro achievements. Mine came with screen protector. I have not yet installed it, but I will soon. And then of course the stuff you'd use to install the screen protector. And then it did come with a SD card that's preloaded with games. I did not use this SD card. I bought my own and put my own games on, as well as my own firmware, just because, from what I've been told online and from other people, these SD cards that are generic that it comes with, not very reliable, and the last thing you want is for the SD card to fail when you're in the middle of playing a game through a long playthrough. But if your goal is to take the system out of the box and start playing it right away, and you don't really care too much about losing your data, and you're just looking to play games, honestly, this cartridge does come with a lot of games installed on it. They work completely fine, and you can literally just install it and turn the system on and start playing it right away. Alright, let's take a closer look at the system. So right off the bat, you see that there's a 3:2 aspect ratio screen, IPS display, perfect for GBA games, makes them look absolutely gorgeous on the system. Joysticks, these are the same joysticks that the Joy-Cons use. Again, these are good quality joysticks. They feel great. They're slightly rubbery. You will notice that the color is slightly different than the color of the buttons. For me, that kind of throws me off a little bit. I wish they were the same color as the buttons. Buttons themselves on the surface are not clicky at all. Same with the start and select. You will notice that the L2, L1, and R1, R2 buttons are rather clicky. On top we have the plug-in for the microphone jack, as well as your outlet for charging the system and your outlet for attaching the Wi-Fi dongle. On the back we have our two rubber pads. That's very common with Anbernic systems. Good for if you have the system placed on a surface, it's not going to slide around. Again, I want to harp on the quality of the plastic. I really was, honestly, when I first unboxed this and first started playing it, I was very surprised by how good it felt. It felt like, even though this is something made out of China, it felt like a good quality and well-made system. On the bottom, we have our speakers, as well as the port for your SD card. Now I do wish that this port did have some sort of cover on it to protect the SD card. As you can see, it doesn't. And also one thing I noticed, I mean, to take it out is a little tricky at first. You have to press it in, and it's kind of hard to do if you have, you know, thicker fingers. But as you can see, this is where it goes. I use the SanDisk SD card that I purchased aftermarket, just because I wanted a better quality SD card instead of the generic one it came with. Alright, I'm going to boot the system, but before I do that, real quick, I'm going to go over the specs. As I mentioned, the screen is a 3x2 aspect IPS display. The battery the system uses is a 35 milliamp battery. That should last you around, I mean, depending on what you're playing, it could be between like 3 and 5 hours of gameplay. That's what I'm finding for myself as well. The CPU is a quad-core 1.5 gigahertz CPU, and it uses 1 gigabyte of RAM. And this does operate on the Linux system. So let's boot up. Again, I'm using the Anbernic custom front end. We have our Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, Nintendo 64, Nintendo DS, PlayStation, and as well as the screenshots that I save for later on when I'm making content. Alright, let's play some games. I'm going to demonstrate some of the consoles on this system to kind of give you an idea of what it can handle, starting with Super Nintendo. Not gonna lie, Wario Land, the first Wario Land for the Game Boy was probably one of my favorites. Gotta play Yoshi. I honestly thought it'd be worse playing Mario Kart on this than it is. It's not really that bad right now, to be honest. But again, when I'm reaching the bumpers playing an N64 game, I'm having to claw my finger quite a bit just to play it. So as you can see when we play N64, we get more issues with the frame skips as well as just a lower frame rate. With Super Smash Bros, I'm having all kinds of issues. I got the stick drift going on. The sound is really bad. Alright, so I'm going to go over the things I like about the system, and then I'll go over the things I don't like so much. What I really like about it is the construction. It feels like a really solid system. Like I said earlier, I was surprised how good the quality felt when the system came in. And as far as comfortability goes, it's not bad. I mean, it's a small system, so it's going to be as comfortable as it can be with how big my hands are. But as far as like a possible improvement would have been the R1 and L1 being extended out, almost like a Joy-Con. That probably would be more comfortable in my opinion. But I could see why they opted not to do that, because you're getting this compact system that way. Another thing I really like, and I harped on it earlier, was the display. The display is great for Game Boy Advance. It looks great for Game Boy Advance. It's the 3:2 aspect ratio screen. As I demonstrated earlier, the GBA games just looked amazing on this system. And then finally, I like the overall feel of it. It does give me that nostalgic vibe, which I was looking for when I was first purchasing this system. And maybe that's the color, and it kind of reminds me of the original Game Boy Advance. But overall, I just like the look of it. It just gives me that nostalgic feel. Now, there's of course things I don't like about this system. Number one, and this is probably the biggest thing for me, is not having the built-in Wi-Fi. When I originally purchased it, I didn't think that would be that big of a deal. But then when I started playing games and I found out about retro achievements, I realized that Wi-Fi is a big deal for me. So I had to play with the dongle. So I guess you could say that there is technically Wi-Fi included. However, you do have to play with the dongle, and when you plug it in, you can see that it kind of makes the system look a little bit weird in a way, almost like a cell phone. And I do it because I want to play retro achievements, but I can see how some people, including myself, kind of would get a little bit annoyed by the look of it having a dongle. Another issue I have is with the sleep mode. Generally, the sleep mode works fine. I can put it into sleep mode when I'm playing a game, get out, and I'm back into playing. I have found in the past when I put the game into sleep mode for a long time, let's say a full day, and I go back to it, the game starts back up, but then it freezes. And that might not be an issue with the system itself. It could be with the software that I have set up with it. I can't confirm that, but that's a big issue if it is the system. And one time I was playing a game, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time to be exact. Oh, sorry, not Ocarina of Time, but Seasons. And I played it through pretty much the whole game, and then all of a sudden I have that freezing issue. I had to shut off the system, turn it back on, and my saves were gone. So that's obviously a big bummer for anyone that knows what it's like to play a game almost all the way through and then have it all erased for you, and it makes you not want to play it again. And the last thing I'll say negative about the system is the sound output. It's really not that great. It doesn't get that loud, and this is not really a big issue, but it's something small and something to consider. So I'm going to kind of describe who this system is perfect for, and really that's anyone that wants to play Game Boy Advance. I will say that this system is probably up there with one of the best systems for playing Game Boy Advance games. Now, I know that's a really small subset of the retro community, so maybe that's not enough for you, and then that's totally fine. It can play other games as well. It plays Game Boy great, it plays SNES great, and it does play up to PlayStation 1 pretty flawlessly. But again, it's really, if you're looking to play more of the powerful systems like N64, PSP, PlayStation 2, and maybe even GameCube, this system is just not going to be right for you. If you're someone that's looking to just play Game Boy Advance and you want it to be on a system that's nice and compact, can easily fit in your pocket, and makes Game Boy Advance games look great on it, then this is a good system for you. But if I was to remake this decision and choose between this one and the metal version, I probably would have gone for the metal version, the RG351M, only because of the built-in Wi-Fi and not having the built-in Wi-Fi included with this model. And that's about all I have to say about this system. It's honestly a great little device, and if you're looking for something to play up to PlayStation 1 and you don't really care too much about the internal Wi-Fi and you have a big focus on Game Boy Advance, then this is probably one of the best systems you can buy for yourself. I find with the quality of the build that this thing is going to last me a long time, and I will purchase other consoles that are more powerful just for the sake of playing more powerful systems like PlayStation 2 and GameCube and N64 in the future. But for now, I'm really happy with this, and I have a big list of Game Boy Advance games and Game Boy games that I want to get to, so I'm going to be playing this for a long time. Anyway, if you have this system and you want to leave any additional comments, feel free to do that. Thanks for watching, and please stick around for more reviews.